What kind of escapades can we expect from our various child characters now that they're on Earth? This is something that I know a great deal of the fandom has been wondering ever since Luce and her friends ended up trapped in that other, less magical realm. And since we still don't have any idea when specifically the first of the Season 3 specials are coming, I feel like spending a little bit of time speculating on the kind of things that they could get up to on Earth could be worthwhile. First of all, and the one that I think is going to jump to everyone's mind first and foremost, is Hunter absolutely has to learn about himself, or rather, the self that he was made from. After all, we have seen that there is a statue in the town square in Gravesfield of him and his brother, or rather, Caleb and his brother. And while they do seem to be portrayed as older than Hunter is now, physically speaking, because we don't actually know how old he is, then really think about it, like physically, like you know, like age-wise, like number of years, but like physically he's around like 15, right? But the statue seems to portray Caleb as like, I don't know, 20s or something, it looks like. But I definitely feel like you'd recognize the guy as, at the very least, someone who looks a lot like himself. And that's going to start him asking questions. And we've also had other various elements set up for us that could come into play, helping him to answer them. After all, that historical society jerkwad who tried to dissect a child had books that seemed to tell the story of how Philip and Caleb ended up in the Boiling Isles in the first place. I think that because Hunter is a magical clone of Caleb rather than like a genetic-y, science-y test tube clone, right? It's entirely possible, and this might be why he keeps turning out personality-wise similar to the brother, hence why Bellows has to keep remaking him. I think it's possible that he might have some of Caleb's memories in there buried real deep. Like maybe we'll even see, I don't know how they'd pull it off, but like a trip into Hunter's mind. I mean, we've seen him do it a couple times already. It wouldn't be a stretch to see it a third time before the show's over, where they try to restore Caleb's memories so that he can convey some information to them they need to get back. But it's also possible that reading the story of how Philip and Caleb end up in the Boiling Isles, if Hunter does have any of Caleb's memories, might spark him to remember just enough to fill in the gaps. In short, I think the Hunter-Caleb backstory is going to be something that we're going to see in some form, that the characters are going to dredge up in some form during their time on Earth. But I also think they're going to spend a lot of their time working out how to get back. After all, the crew didn't have to establish that the only two ways to get to and from the Boiling Isles are artificial portals that practically nobody knows how to make, and natural ones that occur semi-randomly. It could have just alluded to some ancient and forgotten portal spell that people used to cross between the dimensions before it was forgotten. So maybe they'll spend a decent amount of their time looking for these natural, semi-random portals and trying to use one to get back and help out. Or, I think it's also entirely possible that there are magical elements on Earth that we're just not aware of yet. Look how many times we've been surprised by the discovery that there was some magical element on Earth that we just didn't expect to be there. V being a prime example, but then seeing all of Ida's random hijinks that we didn't know she got up to. Finding out that magic trash has been left behind, including the various Hexus Hold'em cards that we saw back during V's debut, for example. Couple that with the fact that it seems like at least some of the interactions between people from the two dimensions in the past have been documented by somebody. And I think it's possible that maybe there are some witches living on the Earth side of things that just haven't been able to return. Like, for example, the story of the witch who lured the brothers back, or that the brothers followed back. It seems to vary depending on who's telling the story. it almost seemed like she knew how to find these natural portals, maybe, and use them to get to and from. So maybe we'll find someone, either a descendant of hers, who just got trapped on the wrong side of a portal at some point, or someone that she interacted with while she was on the Earth side, who also knows how to find these natural portals and make use of them. And I feel like, regardless of in what way this attempt to get back to the Boiling Isles goes, Luce is going to spearhead that. Which means that I think most of the time that's spent on Earth by these characters, the main character focus is going to go to Luce and Hunter. Like, of course, Luce has to spearhead the effort to get back to the Boiling Isles. She still has to deal with that thing between her and her mom, and that very dishonest promise to never go back once she returned. But that doesn't mean I don't think the other characters won't get anything to do. Obviously, Amity's going to be involved in, I would imagine, a great number of Luce's plots. There's a portion of the fandom that, based on some vague stuff the crew's been saying online, that the relationship between Hunter and Willow might actually be story relevant. So we'll probably see some of that too. And I imagine we're going to get a pretty interesting mix of Gus just absolutely freaking out about the fact that he can't go home, and freaking out about the fact that he's surrounded by these things that are a major interest of his. I think we'll see a pretty decent amount of him immersing himself in human culture, in part to distract himself from the fact that he is stranded away from home, but also because he genuinely wants to learn. I'm also expecting that we're going to get some amount of character development for V. She's an interesting character with a great voice actress. I'd love to see some arc where, now that Luce is back and she can't disguise herself as Luce whenever she's not in the house anymore, she has to establish an identity for herself. Not sure how she'd go about doing that. It seems like she has to mimic other people, but I don't know, maybe it's an Axe from Animorphs kind of thing, where she can take the features from a bunch of people and merge them together into a new person or something. But the fandom has basically accepted her as Luce's essentially sister this entire time. It'd be nice to see them develop a bond like that too. But I do think that the Earth stuff is going to play a major role in the story. I do think that there is going to be some challenge or some villain, maybe even Bellows himself, maybe that jerk of a historian guy, I don't know, maybe both somehow, that they'll have to deal with, and we are going to have at least one special sent, if not entirely on Earth, then almost entirely on Earth. In fact, I don't think we're going to check back in with the Boiling Isles side of things until, like, when it's time for the characters to go back. I think we'll get kind of like a flashback to what's happened there, and then we'll go into the characters returning or something. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe because they're actually structuring these like specials, we'll get like really cinematic cutaways to what's happening in the Boiling Isles sometimes as other things are going on Earth. Either way, I think it's going to be limited. I think it's going to be very limited compared to the Earth stuff. The Earth stuff's going to eat up a lot of time, and I'm looking forward to it. Like, even though the show did go out of its way to call us out for obsessing over the Azura books and the identity of the author, I do think that might be a red herring, meant to get us to stop talking about it so they can reveal something cool later, so maybe we'll learn something about her, too. That could be neat. It would also be very interesting to find out that some remnant of Philip's old witch hunter extended family, club, cult, whatever they actually were, whatever form they actually took, is still in existence. Because this is a world where real magical witches are a thing. It would make sense for part of their alternate history to include witch hunters sticking around longer than they did in our world. They could certainly make for an interesting antagonist or antagonist group for our heroes to deal with. I don't know, I'm getting a little rambly at this point. I'm just throwing out ideas, because I've been seeing the fandom worrying a lot. Not exclusively. There are definitely some fans that are very excited about getting to see Earth stuff with these characters. But I'm seeing a lot of people worrying a lot because as much as I love Amphibia, for example, let's use it as an example. When they went to Earth, while the episodes were still fine and there were some really good ones in there, the show did seem to slow down and dip in quality a little bit. And I think fans of the Owl House are worrying now that something similar is going to happen here when we barely have any time left with these characters. And I just don't think that's the case. I don't think that's going to happen. I think we're good. I think there's plenty of stuff to do. And based on how well this show has been shown to handle really packed, really cramped episodes with a lot of things going on, I don't think we have to worry about them wasting time. In fact, I feel that looking back, we're going to realize that the stuff that happened on Earth and the growth the characters undergo on Earth, the things that they learn and how those things affect them, etc., etc., I think we're going to realize that that was an integral part of the story, that needed to be there, that this next Earth-based segment needs to be there for the story to be complete. Maybe it's wishful thinking, but I'm just really looking forward to it. Give me a bit of a shorter video this time, but I think that's all I really need to talk about. If you guys have any ideas regarding the specific things I talked about in this video, or just ideas of what these characters might get up to on Earth, things that I didn't talk about, let's talk about them. Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below. And while you're down there, you might as well like the video, share it with anyone else who think would enjoy my content, subscribe if you haven't. You can also check out links to my various social medias, as well as the many ways you can help out the channel. Those will be in the video description, but either way, this has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys later.